So just a few words about where we are in the baking industry to sort of set the stage. The baking industry currently is growing at about a 3 to 4% CAGR and post-pandemic, and that really is coming back to the mean that was pre-pandemic. It was about the same growth rate pre-pandemic, and that growth rate currently is being driven by several trends, a few trends among many. One of those is that artisan products are on the rise. Sales of artisan bread alone grew by 7% in 2023. Specialty diets is another one. Gluten-free bread, for example, the gluten-free market in total, excuse me, not just bread, is growing at about 9.1%, which is a really nice growth rate. There's also then a sustainability focus, which is driving growth through things like organic products, sustainable packaging, and increasing demand in that segment here. And why this is a subject that's on so many people's minds is that during the pandemic, there was a huge spike in demand for baked products and for snacks as people ate at home more versus eating out. The categories, most categories in the baking industry grew as much as 15% during the pandemic, which was very significant and a challenge for many food production companies and specifically bakers to handle. They did increase capacity to handle that demand, and they did that in a couple of ways. Oftentimes, they did it by working longer hours and more days. And sometimes the companies who had the demand and the wherewithal also added production lines. Many companies did both. But I think it was really that increase in demand and the increased pressure put on the workforce and food production companies that really brought the issues we're having with workforce to the surface in a new light. Workforce, I think, has always been a challenge for the industry in terms of hiring, training, and then retaining. It's always been a challenge, but I think the pandemic just really highlighted, it brought the challenge closer to the doorstep of all food manufacturing companies. When we take a look at workforce and cost challenges, it's interesting to note that in 2021, the baking industry spent $415 million on repairs and maintenance. Also interesting to note that in 2025, 69% of bakery manufacturers are planning to invest in new ways in maintenance on the equipment in their plants. And finally, we can attribute $144 billion in annual direct wages for the industry. So a very significant part of our economy. So much so that the ABA has highlighted that by 2030, the industry will have a shortage of as many as 53,000 workers. Now, that's so critical that the ABA has made that one of their top strategic priorities in their new strategic plan is, a focus on how to help the industry attract, train, and retain workers. If you look at the BEMA Intel report, it also demonstrates that workforce is a top concern, with about a third of respondents putting workforce among their top challenges that they face today in terms of bakers putting product out, but also equipment suppliers being able to deliver equipment, but also to install and train and maintain equipment in plants. And I can tell you that, as somebody who spent many years leading equipment manufacturing companies for the food industry, it has always been, and it increasingly is, a challenge to have technically trained people to go into a food production plant, train workers, oftentimes in our industry, there's a high turnover rate. And so perhaps then a short time later, you're back trying to train again, depending on production schedules and the availability of workers. It's not always the most efficient way to operate or to train and therefore retain workforce. And Wendy, you'll probably talk a little bit about that. I'm sure you've seen that, but I remember a lot of stressful days in the office trying to match training schedules with our teams and the availability of workers in a bakery, for example, to be able to be trained. And turnover rates just, further complicate that. And so, that's how I came to be involved in WorkForge is, when I became aware of the workforce technical library content, their ability to do, custom training videos. I just really saw, hey, here's a solution that can help not only plug the gap in terms of training, but lead into retention of workers as a result. And so with that, Wendy, why don't I turn it over to you and let you talk a little bit about your specific experiences at Palermo.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Tim. Appreciate that. Yes, and with that, just as a nice segue into some of the things I'll talk about, we definitely are not alone in our industry and in our company. But I want to talk today just a little bit about some things that we are doing that have really tried to combat some of these challenges. So to start, really nice to be here. Thank you so much, WorkForge and Baking and Snack, and to be a part of this. So Palermo's, you may recognize the name. However, you may recognize one of our other brands, which you can kind of see in my background, but also on here. Palermo, Screamin' Sicilian, Connie's, Urban Pie, and Pizza are all of our brands. We operate and function a frozen pizza manufacturing company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We celebrated our 60 years last year, so we're 61 years in. 1964 is when we started. It's a family business. The parents arrived from Sicily and have grown it, and the sons have taken over, and now it's in third generation. Their sons are also working here. So we operate 4 production lines, 3 bakeries, making a variety of crust and different pizzas under the Palermo's name, as well as private label. Here in Milwaukee, in Jefferson, and soon to be a third location really close to us in West Milwaukee. Very proud. I've been here for a little over 3 years, and for those 3 years, we've been named a Great Place to Work certified, and that all comes from our employees. We have over 1,300, and we affectionately call them pizzaiolas in this industry. So that's a little bit about Palermo's, just as a start. We're a frozen pizza manufacturer. We make 3.4 million pizzas a week. Yes, I said million in a week, and we distribute it all over the world. So it's a high-speed entrepreneurial environment, which there are some things that in that environment I needed to do to make sure that, again, as I mentioned, we are working to try to solve and come up with solutions for some of the challenges in the industry. So as I mentioned, we wanted to make it a great place to work, have training more accessible, training more efficient, and really provide transparency into career development opportunities for employees. And I knew I needed to do that by having a platform that would allow me to do that. Hence, when I discovered WorkForge and some of the offerings that it provides, it just all came together, and I'll get into more of that in some of the things that we're doing. So one of the big pieces when I arrived here, to really drive this culture and be a great place, an employer of choice, was really connecting with all of the local agencies and the local partnerships in our community. Not talking about staffing agencies per se, but we do have a solid partnership with 3 to 4 agencies that do help us on a daily basis or project basis. But what I mean by that is community partnerships that specifically that work together with refugees that are arriving in our city and in our community, and then the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, as well as the Department of Workforce Development. So with those connections, I was able to build those connections, but then also intentionally build my team to support a lot of these individuals who are looking for employment and wanting to start a career in Wisconsin, and specifically Milwaukee, that may speak a variety of different languages. So I intentionally built my team with a very bilingual, trilingual, and I won't share with you, one of my employees actually speaks eight languages. So I'm extremely fortunate, but that was intentional. That's why I knew I needed to do that in order to continue to attract the talent that we needed for our over 900 employees in our production facility that we work 3 shifts 24/7. So it's a key piece that we needed to do, and we really created that reputation in the environment, that reputation of an employer of choice in the market. And so we actually have a waiting list right now for second shift, which for those of you on and work in manufacturing, a lot of people say that second shift is their hardest one to staff. So again, it's being very intentional about the individuals that we attracted and that we partnered with from that perspective. And with that, I'm super proud. Again, those who are on in the manufacturing industry know the turnover rate and the retention rate in our industry. And we hover at an 80%. Actually, right now we're at 83% in our plant of retention. I like to say retention versus turnover, because I think retention really, again, speaks volumes to what I'm trying to do and build, and also some of the things that we're doing in our development pathways and development pieces. So with that, like I mentioned, I knew I needed to make training very accessible and easy to use. And we do a lot of visuals, right? 8 languages, no one's reading a book, no one's reading a manual. So it's about videos, it's about pictures, it's about showcasing things visually to them. And with that diversity that we have, it's very important to us. So it's, a big yes, green check mark for this is the right glove to wear, or, this is not where to, store, put trash or garbage. This is a smoke-free facility, right? Those types of things. So we started our journey to self-service for employees very much when I arrived too. So we really encouraged that, and actually saw that a lot of employees, no one has a computer or even an email address, but they all have phones. So we really transitioned to that from a payroll perspective, from a time card perspective. But then now with this platform on WorkForge, I was able to really transition that from a training perspective as well. So here, this is actually one of my favorite slides that I want to showcase. So when I say make it more efficient, just to give you a small stat, individuals in this picture, right? You can see the number. That's just actually it's one shift and 2 lines are there. So we kind of break it up by shift and line, and we actually do it before their shift starts, which allowed us to reduce overtime. We were actually making them come in an hour early or staying an hour later to receive their training. So we were able to reduce all of that and really broke it up into chunks. So here you can see these individuals used to come all at one time. They would actually sign in on a roster, right? Pen and paper. We would have somebody, then administrator, go back and enter all of that data manually into our previous system. So you can imagine how many hours that took, and trying to translate the names that people signed was also very fun. So we were able to completely reduce that. So right now, individuals arrive. You see the slide here. They scan the QR code. That is their associate ID number, and that is actually the back of their badge. So everybody carries their badge to get everywhere and to log in everywhere. So they log in with their associate ID on their badge. Once they do it one time, it's automatically there. So really all they have to do is click in that box, check that I'm not a robot, and they're marked attended. So you can see the efficiencies that this created. And then also on the slide, when the presenter is presenting is coming up in all different languages and being translated also. So it's an amazing, I said, amazing process that we were able to implement with the help of this platform and the team. And then also, again, just knowing that I needed to do this for retention and for additional development. So
Wendy?
each of our individuals we have a job title or a learning pathway for every job title. Yes, 700 looks like a lot. So we are not anywhere near the 700. But what I did, again, started from the very beginning at our beginning production positions. What do I need to do when I'm a temporary employee, I become a regular employee, I move to like a B level associate, right? As I'm starting out, but how do I get to an A? And how do I get to make potentially more compensation, right? That's on people's minds. And again, this is all about the retention and the transparency and the development so that people can actually see where am I at, where can I go? And here's what I want to do. So that was actually very intentional as well as where we started. But as we now are in the platform, we've been continuing to build manager pathways, supervisor pathways, utilizing the course content that's in the platform and really showcasing that like visually again to the employee. Every morning, we have a connection with our HRIS system, and that connects with WorkForge every day. So when someone's hired, they are automatically in the platform. And one other example I just wanted to provide. So those of you on may do new hire orientations. One of the things that we were able to implement with this platform now is someone comes to orientation. We have it for a day. The first thing that they do is actually they see the QR code on the slide at new hire orientation. They scan it, and they then get credit for about 12 courses that they are going to be going throughout the day in new hire orientation. Whereas again, here are the time savings and efficiencies. Previously, they had to, again, we signed them in, right? They had to then go in manually and give them credit for all 12 of those safety, quality, HR policy related, compliance related training. So, I mean, it's just an amazing time saver that we were able to do that as well. So this is an example of the platform, of the example I was giving you of an associate level. So if I'm a B, here are all the things here are all the courses and the content that I need to complete in order to even be considered to move to the A. So for this role particularly, it's on the job training. So if you click on it where it says play, it's very much a visual, and it's actually a video. So like a sauce attendant, they're gonna click the video and they're gonna see, okay, if I'm in this position on the line, here's what I'm doing on a daily basis and some of the things that I have to know about that area. Again, it's not written, there's no words. It's actually just a video of that spot, and it plays, and then they see that. And then we have training coordinators that actually then say, okay, yep, this person watched it, they were on the line with them, they know it, and then they are marked and completed. This actually goes beyond into very much more skilled positions, especially like what Tim was talking about on the skilled side. So with this platform, this example is more visual, but the skilled positions, they actually have an evaluation that they have to complete, specifically like when I say skilled, like for operator level or operators that are in training to become maintenance technicians or maintenance trainees. They have evaluations of very specific things that they have to do on that piece of equipment, or when there are troubleshooting things. One of the other elements of that this platform is providing to us is that we actually have a QR code that when let's say that piece of equipment is having some issues with, say, like a wrapper or a box or the cartoner or the wrapping piece of it, and it needs to stop for a minute. The individual or the operator can actually scan the QR code and watch the troubleshooting video of that particular area and say, okay, yep, when this happens, this has happened before. So we have this video to show them and say, okay, yep, I'm going to stop this, push this button, reset this. So again, that for those of you on the line, I'm sure it can speak volumes to downtime and the cost of downtime. And especially when you're trying to make 3.4 million pizzas a week, you can imagine our downtime is very important to us. So again, just showcasing some of the efficiencies and the cost effectiveness of utilizing technology and this platform and this process to really, really enhance that. Also, I lied. This is also my favorite slide, right? Because this again just showcases just the amazing movement of our pizzaiolas, and this is highlighted on our intranet, but it's also highlighted in all of our monitors that we have around the facility that everyone in production sees every single day. It rotates with a variety of messages. Obviously, this is words, right? But hopefully, they can see their name and they can say, see that they're showcased. But also in those pre-shift training meetings, the picture that I showed you, every single one of these individuals is called out and given a congratulations to and recognized for their movement. And you can really see like on here, the words, right? They moved from a temporary employee to a B to an A. The one that's highlighted is a great story. They started in the warehouse as an associate B and now they actually lead our procedures in our warehouse. So they make sure all of the standard operating procedures and the scanners and the different tasks are being followed in the right procedure. So that's a really big step and journey for that employee, which is fabulous and exactly what I want to see and create here in our environment and in our culture. So this really just sums up the slide of other things that I talked about, right? We were able to reduce overtime, cost savings. We integrate with our HRS, so it's all automatically connected with our employee base. And that takes away all of that manual process of adding, deleting, terminating someone. Everything is all automatic. The tracking, I talked about the savings with that. I mean, that was alone just amazing and huge of the amount of time that was spent on paper. And then with the fact that we were able to, I know Tim touched on this a little bit with like the timing of training, right? Previously, we had to, again, have them stay an hour later, have them come in an hour earlier. We were paying that overtime. And then when someone was training that day, we actually had to bring on a temporary employee to fill in on that certain position on the line so that person could be trained. Now it's extremely intentional and it's actually scheduled because of the platform. We're able to say, okay, with that, we're actually going to do it real time, right on the line with the coordinators that we have and with the technical trainers that we have. So that reduced that as well and allowed for some additional cost savings. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the workforce team just to talk a little bit about some of that, just the maintenance perspective.
Yeah, just a few thoughts here, Wendy, and perhaps I can highlight some of the challenges and you can pick up on the solution side, at least as you know it. And even actually before jumping into this slide, I'm really curious. I love this aspect of a pathway, a training pathway to promotion and to earning more money. Do you see incidences of your workforce doing training on their own time, that being able to access training videos and sort of begin to, prepare for that next role that they want to take on? Or have you seen that trend yet?
I would say we're getting into that trend, yes. So the more comfortable they become with the platform, again, we started with, okay, let's get attendance, right? Let's get these evaluations going. Let's get the videos and the QR codes going. But we also have iPads and we have a kiosk as well in our area that the plan as we continue to move forward is for those individuals to be able to utilize those iPads and kiosks during the workday, maybe on their break, or potentially, let's say, if there is an opportunity before the shift starts and they're still working on the handover, the cross between the two shifts, definitely to have that going. But then more importantly, to have conversations with the employee to say, okay, with that, in this pathway, this is one where you're going to have to potentially to log in and do, because it's a video and it has some questions to it on your own time and or on your break time. So we definitely want to get to that to answer your question for sure.
Wonderful. So it sounds like it's still a little bit directed at this phase, but room to grow there for personal initiative.
Absolutely.
So I think really here, just highlighting, from my perspective as an equipment supplier for many years on the production lines, what the biggest no-no was unplanned downtime due to equipment failure, especially for you when you're putting that many pizzas out the door. Having an equipment failure that's unplanned is extremely costly and extremely frustrating. And I know that, as I mentioned earlier, as an equipment supplier, we often found that, it was very simple things that could cause unplanned downtime on equipment. And they usually related back to training, whether, sometimes that was operator training, oftentimes that was maintenance training. And so I don't know if you have anything to share for us in terms of sort of the structured preventative maintenance training that Workforge allows.
Yes, absolutely. So you're exactly right. Sometimes it is where the operator has never experienced what the machine is doing at that particular moment that's causing that downtime. So it does go back to say, okay, when this happens, right? We have a whole team that has created this technical training path for individuals to become operators, and it's a lot of what most of the time happens with these machines and these pieces of equipment, and the information that we received from the OEM and from their trainings and their manuals and different things. But what we found is that sometimes on those ones that are just, yep, this has never happened before. It's particularly mostly the piece of equipment, right? But there are times though to say like, okay, yep, we just need to make sure that this individual receives maybe a refresher in this area because it was something that they had gone through previously. And that again is where previously having it in a manual or a standard, an SOP or a work instructions in writing was challenging for someone to, it's like the pressure situation, right? I'm going to look through this manual, but whereas now they can actually just scan this, watch it, and then, yep, okay, this is what I need to do on this. So if that helps answer that a little bit on like what we do.
I remember many urgent calls over the years to our technical service department. And when the first question was, okay, do you have your manual? The answer oftentimes was, no, I don't. I need your help. We can't find the manual. We don't remember where we put it. And so to your point, this really eliminates that aspect of it when you've got it, present and accessible. On the next point, skills gaps and high turnover in maintenance, a term that's often been used in the industry, both for food production for bakers and on the equipment technical side, is what we would call tribal knowledge. There were always those experienced, more senior people around who had knowledge, whether it was, on how to make a pizza crust or whether it was how to keep a certain piece of equipment running. And as the baby boomers now are, into a significant retirement phase and leaving the workforce, what really becomes critical is that transfer of what we've always referred to as tribal knowledge. How do you get that out of somebody's head and into the data that you now have access to online, through your learning platform? Can you say a few words about that cross-training and knowledge capture?
For sure. Yes, absolutely. So I know you mentioned in the beginning too, we are definitely, we definitely experience this on our maintenance side, and is one of our key areas. And we have actually just a very specific team that their focus is on maintenance sourcing, maintenance recruiting, maintenance relationships with our local technical schools. We have a really great partnership with one of the schools here in Wisconsin that helps us get in front of these students, and we actually pay 100% of their schooling, and they can actually work here and get paid for their working and going to school. So, but at the same time, as everyone on this call probably knows, and you know, Tim, very well, is that there's only a certain number of beginning level individuals that we could have, specifically in maintenance, right? So it's this balance of having individuals who have that tenure and that tribal knowledge and that experience, and then it's the individuals who are in their early career stages, and the powerful connection between those two and the mentorship and the knowledge transfer and showing these individuals when something happens, this is how I've fixed it. This is how I've done this, right? And that observation and that absorption from that individual between the two. So that balance is something that is the magical potion, right? That I think that everyone probably on this call is all looking for, and so am I. But to my point in the very beginning of how I built my team, this is also how we're building this, to be very intentional with the pathways and the platform that we're using to have someone develop and train and go through. So a lot of that list that you saw of those individuals, this is all like our promotions and movement is all homegrown, right? And within house. So that's where we are putting our focus, is that we need to continue to develop the individuals that are here. And in addition, our additional, like our sourcing efforts and our connections in going after, I guess, for the lack of better words, individuals who have this skill set in maintenance or as a bakery scientist or as a food scientist, right? It has to be this combination of sourcing and attracting talent, but also growing talent internally as well for that powerful mix. And yes, so I every day that's my focus.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And so if I follow what you're saying, that's one of the ways that you use the workforce becomes a repository for that knowledge as well, so that it's there even if you lose valuable employees who had recorded it anywhere.
Right. Yep, exactly. And, that's one of the pieces that we are building right now in Workforge and in the platform. There are many, there's a great pathway in there for maintenance, but as everyone on this call knows, right, there's a lot of custom things, right, that is very specific to our company. But then again is where the platform allows us and that connection with videos we've already made, or resources or suggestions on things that we can do to make sure that uploads into the system appropriately. And then we haven't even dove into, but there's the customized training that the team can help us with as well. But like I said, we are the terminology is right. You kind of crawl, walk, run. We are almost walking, right? So we're, but that's also too the exciting part of the opportunities that we have with this platform, and what's ahead of us as we continue to build it too.
Yeah, wonderful. And then really the last point that I wanted to highlight here is, food safety, sanitation, huge issues in food production, and something I know those of us in the industry are always very focused on and very concerned with. And so certainly inconsistencies or lack of training in that area can end up being extremely costly. Maybe you can say a few words about the food safety focused training that you, in combination with Workforge, are able to deploy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and that's one of the pieces that we did right off the bat and are really proud of. And all of the things that I talked about today is what came with these efficiencies. So the annual training that we have for quality, especially food safety, and for safety in general, um, each month there are two courses that employees would go through from an annual compliance perspective. And that was all manual. That was all the paper that we talked about, all of those pieces. And with the shift to the platform, all of them are videos now. It's all done pre-shift. They watch the video, they hear from their supervisor, they hear from the safety manager and our EH&S specialist, they hear from our quality team on the food safety thing, but it's a lot of pictures, it's a lot of, again, the visual aspects of things. So every month, the first week of the month is safety. The second week of the month is quality. The third week of the month is HR policies, compliance, recognition, awards, anniversaries, the recognition of the promotions. And then the fourth week of every month is a mix of contemporary topics that are happening in production. And this is like the one I'm talking about is really geared to production, but also this is a company wide. So all of our salaried, all of our office employees, everyone who lives in sales across the country, they all go onto the Workforce platform every month and take their 2 safety and their 2 quality training. So it's across the board, employee wide. But to that point, we were really able to then also do like what's are called 1-point lessons. So let's say, for example, there is something that's identified from a safety perspective, or there's a safety risk that's identified during a walkthrough. Those are things that we take really seriously, either on the safety or the food safety side. And our company is very much about like, okay, we are going to stop the line right now because safety is the most important thing to us, and everyone going home exactly the way they came. So we do safety stand downs, and we're not afraid to do that. With the amount of things that we have to accomplish every day, but safety and food safety take the top. So we will stop that and do those safety stand downs, and that allows us to do that with, again, the platform to re-show the video and do it real time right off the bat too. So yeah, there's just a couple of pieces on that topic.
Wonderful. Very exciting. And, it's so exciting to watch what you're doing there and the culture you're building. Before we started this, I'd never heard you say that you have a waiting list on your second shift. That's absolutely incredible. Yeah. And is really a testament to the culture you're building. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Yep, as you can tell, I'm a little bit passionate about all of this, so I could talk a long time. So yeah, I mean, if anybody has questions, I'm certainly happy to answer, and it's a really good segue to our question page.
Yeah.
Wonderful. We'll turn it back over.
Yeah, thank you, Tim, Wendy, and Katie. That was an excellent discussion. And as Wendy said, we're going to move on to our audience Q&A. As a reminder, to participate, just type your question into the Q&A text area and click the submit button. So our first question is, maintenance is our hardest role to fill. How do you find maintenance talent? Wendy, I think that's probably to you.
Yes. Yep. I know. And I know I mentioned that, right? I'm sure everybody in the call, that's like the #1 area. So when I talked about what I did was I knew that, again, I needed to be very intentional with this recruiting and this sourcing. So I'm sure like some of you, you've heard of like the white glove service, right? Of like the top client, your top A customers, right? So I really moved maintenance and the staffing of that really into the A category. So I partnered together with a team that specifically all they do for us, and they are an extension of my team. They work, I'll just be transparent. It's an RPO, right? I'm sure the recruitment process outsourcing piece, but I knew that I needed to have an extension of my internal team really focused on maintenance and being the ones that are going out there and sourcing passive candidates, looking for candidates in our area that we know that there are targeted areas that we can focus on, and also so that it flowed through one funnel. Previously, and I'll just be transparent, because of the challenge in finding individuals with this skill set, we were partnering with just like 9 to 12 different agencies all over the board. I'm sure you on the phone, right? And I apologize if any recruiters are on the phone, but you guys, we get bombarded from recruiters every day, right? Like, I have this person, and here's my rate, and here's my fee, and it was a lot, and it was way overwhelming and not cost effective at all. So I knew I had to do something with this, and also I knew with our new facility coming online that my responsibility is to make sure that we have the staff that is ready and trained and ready to be at that new facility, and to maintain our staffing levels here at our main facility. So to answer your question, I made it very intentional, and I have an A team on it.
Excellent, thank you. Have you seen additional savings outside of HR as a result of the effort you described today?
Yeah. So outside of HR, I mean, from a labor cost perspective, which again, those on the phone in manufacturing, it's probably one of your biggest KPIs, right? That you're tracking, and tolling rates and all of those different things. Labor is your number one piece. So the savings have come with the reduction in having to use temporary workforce and that headcount when someone's training.
Excellent. So if you were building a business plan to invest in training, what would be the 3 biggest proof points that you would include to get an executive to buy in?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So whoever is asking that question, I'm more than happy to share with them what the presentation that I put together to our executive team. Well, I'm on the executive team, but I had to present, right, to our team and get the buy-in from them to make this investment. And I utilized very specific things within our work environment that I knew were pain points, especially in manufacturing and operations. What I mentioned with those KPIs, how can I showcase this and the return on the investment in this investment, speaking the language of operations, and then labor costs and headcount, and also with the retention, all of those different things, right? The retention costs, sourcing costs, all of those different pieces. So I'm more than happy to share that, but it was very specific to our organization. And I knew that if I touched on those things, that would speak their language and their world. And it worked. So was able to make.
It's interesting, Wendy, you know, I've found over the years that in our industry, companies don't really do a good job of tracking the cost of turnover. And I think that's something that, you know, we're doing a much better job of in general in the industry, just because workforce is such an issue. But, you know, I think we've underestimated it for years. And I think as people begin to understand the cost of hiring, training, you know, the knowledge gain that's lost through turnover, I think, you know, we're beginning to realize it's a very expensive proposition.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, the top metric. I know I talked about retention rate is what I track, but right behind that is all the data behind, you know, individuals who leave and for different variety of different reasons, right? And then the cost associated with everything that comes with replacing that person.
Right.
Katie, did you have anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you. I'm good.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's all the questions that we had. An archive of today's presentation will be emailed to you in the next 24 hours. Thank you for attending this webinar presented by WorkForge, and we hope you will return here for future webcasts from Soslan Publishing.